I'm Joey.T.Cartoon.P and you're watching the Cartoon Palooza. There was an animated film that came out on Netflix called Next Gen that I wanted to review, mostly because this was a thing that looked like it could have been in theaters. I saw a trailer for it and I was kind of surprised. Upon further investigation, I found out that there were studios that were trying to market this for theaters. However, because it dealt with territory that wasn't quite family friendly, it was hard to get a distributor to put it into theaters. So it's on Netflix. Here it is. Let's go talk about it. Next Gen. Our movie opens with a girl whose father leaves them and then never comes back. Right off the bat, not a very conventional way to start an animated film, but I appreciate it. Then it's juxtaposed with a flashing montage showing a girl growing up as a rebel, eventually learning that our protagonist doesn't get along with her mother, who's too preoccupied with the latest robots. Now, I forgot to mention that this movie takes place in a distant future where technology has taken over and it's like we've reached singularity, where technology has overrun most people's lives, and in some ways the artificial intelligence has become similar to regular intelligence. And even though the technology is human-like, it doesn't stop the fact that they're still disposable, which comes in a little odd at certain moments when characters just die, and you kind of wonder about the value of their life even though that they're just robots. To a certain degree, practically lifelike. And that brings us to another character in the film, a robot voiced by Jim from The Office. He's an adaptive AI whose programming allows him to empathize with his owner on a personal level. And for some reason was given a crap ton of weaponry, I guess because it's important to have a lot of weapons on you. And if you're supposed to be lifelike and have relations with other people, you just want to have a ton of guns on you. I don't know who designed this robot, some crazy gung-ho alt-right dude who just wants to give him a lot of guns. And the cool thing about our protagonist is that she is a rebel. We understand why she has distaste for robots, given that her father left, and her mother, who's kind of relied on robots to kind of make up for things. Gives for an interesting dynamic between her and her mother, and then the robots that invade their lives. So then when you have this other robot who's coming into our main protagonist's life, there's that relation they have with one another. In some ways seems contrived and seems like it's been done in other movies, but believe it or not, the movie actually addresses that. And the way they address it is almost like that line from Scrooge where Bill Murray's character tells the ghost, well, you're not going to get me to go on a sentimental journey where I learn about how to change my ways. It's pretty much just like that.
We hang out, become best buds, take on the world, share a deep and moving journey of discovery together.
Okay. And now, because we have a talking robot movie, we gotta have bad guys, and our bad guy in this movie is played by Jason Sudeikis. He's kind of like the evil Tim Cook of this world, developing the technology that people need. He's got this bodyguard robot, which I swear to God we've seen in other movies. It's the RoboCop villain. You know, the big giant RoboCop villain who surprisingly can go downstairs. The thing I can't stand about Jason Sudeikis' character is that, given like most movie villains, he just comes across as passive aggressive and trying to say like, oh yeah, I'm not a bad guy, but he definitely is a bad guy. Almost of trying to pull the audience out of it, but we all know he's just gonna be a bad guy anyway, so why are you trying to make us feel like we need to sympathize with him? He's a straight up evil dude, as we'll see later in the film, which I'm not gonna go into specifically, of being a pretty straight up bad guy. There's also a performance by David Cross, who in animated films is a delight to see. And interesting enough is that he plays not just the programmer to the robots, he also plays the voice of most of the robots in the film. So it's an interesting thing to see in the film. The interesting thing about robots in film is that there's always this interesting idea of mortality and morality. What it means to be lifelike. And there are a lot of great robots in film that I feel display that, especially in animation where you've got the Iron Giant, Baymax, Wall-E of course. And I know not technically animated, but dude, I love me some Johnny 5, one of my favorite robots in film. So it makes you wonder about our main protagonist, the Jim Bot, and I'm calling him the Jim Bot because it's Jim from The Office, there's no other way I could look at that. And I do think his voice, his mannerisms, and his actual character and flaws make him a very compelling movie robot. When you listen to that voice, there is so much humility to it. Almost to a point where it makes me wonder why we haven't seen John Krasinski do more animated films. And that sort of humility where you've got a movie where there's a lot of overacting and have this somewhat laid back, subdued performance that really isn't over the top and kind of fits this robot, to me fits perfectly. I mean, some people can argue that it's a little like the Baymax performance, but I would say that there's a little bit more humility and more humanity to that performance than I would say for Baymax. The motions, of course, similar to Baymax or any sort of animated robot that we've seen in computer animation. However, the one thing about the character's flaw that I think really define him as a movie character is that in a chase scene, he loses the memory card, which allows him to store new memories. So he actually has to constantly remove memories that he has determined as not being good. The cool thing about that is that it delves into a theme that memories should be taken for granted, even the good ones and the bad ones. Something that I don't think most animated movies share. Alright, I take that back. You got movies like Inside Out that talk about it, but to see it in a sci-fi movie with a robot and his best friend, that's not the first thing you think of when you think of a movie talking about memories. The action itself is really good too, though. I really can't complain about it. And I could definitely see why a lot of distributors would have a hard time marketing this movie for mainstream moviegoers. Is this a film I'm going to see again? Probably. Not going to say it's worth it, but definitely an okay movie. Are there certain things that are distracting about this film? As I mentioned before with the villain, but then we also got a thing like a talking dog, because hey, it's an American animated movie. Gotta have a talking dog in there somehow, right? And not only is this a talking dog character, it's a talking dog played by Michael Pena. So I know it's technically not a talking dog per se, and that it's the robot interpreting the dog's language, therefore giving us a performance, as I mentioned, as voiced by Michael Pena. But it's still very jarring, especially when you consider that there are certain scenes where the robot leaves and yet you still hear the dog talking even though the robot's not present in the scene. So who's listening to this dog? Nobody is, but because it's Michael Pena and I guess it's in his contract that we need to hear Michael Pena, we gotta hear the dog talk somehow. And then what's even more distracting about that is exactly what the dog is talking about, which is, I kid you not, 80% cursing.
And I was like, hey, you want a piece of this? And then bam, scrap metal. You don't with Momo, son.
And I know they bleep out the curses, but when you're watching this and you're thinking about it being a family movie with a talking robot and whatnot, and then hearing this jarring censored bleeps from Michael Pena, you're like, okay, that's in this movie. Just kind of send you into a halt for a bit. Are there other things I'm looking forward to seeing on Netflix? Oh, definitely. I know I gotta catch up on Voltron. That show's a lot of fun. But let me know in the comment section below, what show are you looking forward to or currently on Netflix that you're checking out? Comment below, let me know. It's always fun making these videos. I'm Joey T, and thanks for watching this review on the Cartoon Palooza.